Hey everybody, so today we're going to be working on our December 2012 Copic coloring card kit, and this month's card kit includes this Magnolia stamp called Christmas with Christmas Tilda with cat. Isn't it cute? I've already stamped my image on Nina 80-pound Solar White cardstock with Memento Tuxedo Black ink. And you can head over to the store and see if this kit is still available by putting the title of the card in the search engine. If you're watching this later on, it may not be there anymore, but you can always go check. So let's get started. Alright, so this time, since I'm going to be using red on my image, I don't want to accidentally touch it to do the background afterward. I've colored it, so I'm going to do the background first. That way I don't make a mess, because I always do. So I'm going to start by doing the ground, and for the ground I'm going to use W1 and W0. I'm going to start with W1. And I don't want my ground to stop right here at the bottom of my cat, so I'm going to start right up here with my W1 so it looks like it kind of goes behind him a little bit. And I'm just going to lightly flick from the edge of my cat, kind of in a check mark motion, away into the white. So I'm just very lightly flicking away from my image out here into the white. And you can go as far out as you want. And he kind of goes across. I'm going to try to keep it kind of in a straight line so I can see to the other side here. Maybe go up just a little bit more. Okay, and then I'm going to grab W0 and I'm just going to flick right over the top of that and pull out further into my white. And you can go as far out as you want. If you want to cover the whole bottom of your circle up, that would be great. If you just want to put a little bit underneath of her, that's fine too. But I'm just using it to soften the edge of my W1. Go up here and get in between this little crack right here. Add a little bit right there because you can see through to the back. Like that. I'm going to leave that like that. That looks pretty good. And then I'm going to start up here on the background, the outline that goes around her. And for that I'm going to start with YR30. And I'm going to do exactly the same thing. So I'm going to just brush away from my girl and my cat out here into the background. Get right in here. And if you get some in her hair, that's okay because she's got brown hair, so it's going to just cover that right back up. Oh, the dog has come to see what I'm doing in here. Alright, so now that Hermes has decided that I'm just up here talking to myself and got rid of him, let's get started on, I'm just going to go ahead and use my blender pen to blend this out before it dries too much. So I'm just going to lightly go back over it and flick out here into the area I didn't color so it pulls that edge of that line away and blends it a little bit better. Like that. That looks pretty good. Okay, so now I'm going to go and I'm going to do the other side. So I'm going to turn it around. And I'm going to use again my YR30. And I'm just going to do like a little check mark with my hand and flick away from my girl out here into however far you want it to go. I usually just let my hand do its natural motion there, and as far as it goes, that's where I stop. Okay, and she's got this little spot down here between her legs too, so I'm going to go ahead and get that. Okay, and I'm going to take again my blender pen, and I'm just going to go right over that, past where I stopped. And if you find your pen feels a little dry, it might need filled up. And I'll lightly go over this middle part here. Okay, that looks pretty good. So now I'm going to take the YR31, and because my girl's face is kind of tipped up on this side, I want it to be more shadowed over here. So I'm going to take my YR31 on this side, and I'm just going to lightly add a little bit right next to the whole image on this side. Touch the paper just a little bit there. Go up here, get right next to her braid or her hair. Maybe down a little bit down this side of the sign. Like that, added just a little bit of shadow. Then I'm going to take my YR30 and I'm just going to go over the edge of that a little bit. And lightly brush right out here into my background. And then I'm going to take, again, my colorless blender, and I'm just going to flick straight from my girl all the way out past into the white. Just blend that line just a little bit more. That gives her a little bit of shadow more on this side over here, so it looks like she has more light coming from over here. Okay, so let's go do her skin, and for that I'm going to use E21, E00, E000. For the cheeks I'm going to use R20 and R30. This is my favorite skin tone. If you want to try a different one, there's a whole bunch of different tones over on the store blog, and there's a link underneath in the description. If you look under labels, under skin tones, there'll be a whole bunch of posts in there that you can go try different ones and then just use whichever one you want. But this is my favorite, so I'm going to start with E21, and I'm going to start where I want it to be shadowed first. So I'm going to start down here on her legs, and I am going to go right along her little skirt and right next to this little cat, and then she's got a little indent in her knee. I'm going to get underneath of that and right along the bottom there. And then for this leg, I'm going to have it go right along her skirt and do the inside of her leg. Like that. And then she's again got this little knee thing. I'm going to go ahead and go right along that. And then I'm going to grab E00, and I'm going to lightly brush over the top of the 21 so that I soften my line. And on this side, I'm just going to leave a little bit there on the inside. And let's go over here, get underneath, like that. And then I'm going to grab E000 and fill that in. Then I'm going to go to her hand, so for that I'm going to grab E21 again. And I want it to be darkest underneath. I'm going to go right along the bottom. And then E00. And I'm going to lightly touch down on the 21 and just brush up, soften that line. And you can go up as far as you want. I'm going to leave the top part of her hand white so I can fill it in with the E000. And then E000. Let's fill that all the way in like that. Then I'm going to go ahead and grab my E21 again, and I'm going to go up here and I'm going to get underneath of her chin, on her neck, and then I'm going to outline her face. just lightly on the outside here. And then I want her to have a little bit, I'm going to give her kind of like she has a nose. So I'm going to take my pen and I'm just going to go like this. That way it'll make a little definition there, make it look like she's got something there. Then I'm going to grab E00. I'm going to fill in her neck. Then I'm going to lightly go up here and brush on my 21 and just flick into the inside of her face. And again, I'm not too concerned if I touch her hair because it's going to be brown, so it's going to cover it up if I get this lighter color on there, so I'm not going to worry about that. But like that. And then I'm going to grab my E000 and I'm just going to lightly go over that whole white space. And I'm not worried that it looks kind of blotchy because I'm going to go back with another coat here in a second after we do the cheeks. So for the cheeks, I'm going to do R20. Like that. And then I'm going to grab R30 and I'm going to touch down on my R20 and just feather it away from the R20 just a little bit. Lighten that edge just a tad. Okay. And then I'm going to go back with my E21. And on this side, because her face is tipped away, I'm going to put my E21 just a little bit there on the side, make it a little bit darker. And then I'm going to grab my E00. And I'm going to go right over that entire cheek. And then same for this side, I'm just going to go from the edge of the cheek and pull right over here towards her eye. And then I'm going to take my E000 and just lightly go over the whole face. And then after it's dried a little bit, I go back and I decide if I want to darken her cheeks up a little bit. And if I do, I take my R20 and I just go back over her cheeks a little bit. Just depends on how dark you want those. And if I tend to go back over them, I'll take my E000 again and just lightly go over the cheek just a little bit. Alright, so for her hair, we're going to use E37, E35, E33, and E31. I'm going to start with E37, and I'm going to lay it down where I want it to be shadowed first. So for my girl, I want her to have some shadows right here along the edge of her bangs. So I'm just going to very lightly touch the tip of my pen to the paper and put just a tad bit down here on the end part. Go clear over here to the side, like that. And then I want it to be dark up here at the crown because her head kind of rolls. It's supposed to be a circle, so it's going to roll back, so I want it to appear darker up here at the top. I'm going to put a little bit of that right up here towards the crown. And there tends, on these images, there tends to be a bunch of lines up there, so it kind of shows you where the shadows are. There's a bunch of lines, and if you just fill those in, that would be great. Then again, we're going to go over here, and she's got a little ponytail, so I'm going to darken up where it touches the rest of her hair. And then right here along her face. And it looks like it's kind of braided a little bit, so I'm going to go down this little braidy line and just darken that up just a tad. And maybe right here where it kind of rolls underneath. And then her little ponytail holder is going to scrunch it up, so I'm going to put a little bit there and a little bit on this side. And then I'm going to go over here and do this one. And this one is going to be, I'm going to get right next to her face again, because where it comes away from her face is going to be dark. And again, it looks like it kind of rolls under right here, so I'm going to get in that little crack. And our little ponytail holder, maybe a little bit right here where it looks like it kind of rolls a little bit too. And maybe right here a little bit up at the crown still. So like that, I've got all my E37. Then I'm going to grab E35 and I'm going to go over that and add just a little bit more. So I touch down on the 37 and just flick a little bit more of my 35, filling in a little bit of my space. And her head's tilted down over here, so you could fill in a little bit more on this side compared to the side that's angled kind of up. So I'm going to let my lines go just a little bit smaller on this side. Then we'll get her ponytail. Soften that line we just laid down with the dark color just a little bit. And we'll get this side. There, that looks pretty good. So then I'm going to grab E33, and again you're going to go over the 35 and just add a little bit more color. Softening your little line. I think I'll use this to fill in the underside of some of this little braids over here. And get down from the top. And I'm going to use a little bit less on this side. Leave room for my lightest color. Okay, and then I'm going to go over the whole thing with E31. And you can leave some white in there if you like that. That would be fabulous. I just prefer to have it all the way colored in. That's just my personal preference. Like that. And then I want to go back, and I like to add a few little bit of dark streaks, so I grab my E37 again, and I just go and I hold my pen straight up and down, and I just very lightly flick from the bottom up or from the crown and add a few little dark strands on there. Just darkens them back up just a little bit. I sometimes go down further than I went the first time because I'm using a very skinny line. It just gives her hair a little bit more texture. Get over here on this ponytail a little bit. But that is her hair. Okay, so next let's go work on her dress, shoes, and her hair bows, and for that we're going to use red. So we're going to use R89, R29, R27, R24. I'm going to start with R89, and I'm going to start on her little hair bows first. So I'm going to do just the underside of this one with my R89, and it's got some little lines on the bow. I'm just going to go ahead and color right on top of those. And then I'm going to grab R29. Add a little bit more, and if you fill it all the way in with the R29, that's great too. Just depends on how hard you're touching the paper. And then I'm going to grab R27, and I'm just going to fill them the rest of the way in. And if you still have a little bit of white space you want to use the 24 on, that would be fine too. Just like that for the red on that. And then let's go down and do her dress. So her dress, I'm going to start with R89, and I'm going to do right next to her little vest right here on her sleeve. And I'm just using it very sparingly, just barely touching my pen to the paper. And then we'll get the inside right here, right next to her little vest. And then she's got a cute little, let's get the cuff of her shirt, and then let's do right here along the bottom and along the vest. And then for the bottom down here, I'm going to go right next to her hand, underneath this little sign, and underneath this hand. And then I'm going to grab the R29, and I'm going to go right on top of my R89 just a little bit. I'm just going to lightly brush out into my white just a tad. get this sleeve. Turn my image so I try not to get the red on everything. Never fails, I use red and I usually make a big old mess. And then we'll get her skirt down here on the bottom of her dress. And just go very lightly on the edge of that. Okay, that looks pretty good. Then we'll go R27. And again, I'm just going to go right on top of my 29. Add a little bit of 27. Leave a little bit of space there for my 24. And then down here at the bottom. And then I'm going to fill it in with the R24. And I'm going to just go along the edge here so I try not to get outside the lines and then brush up a little bit. Otherwise, if I try flicking, it never fails. I end up going outside of that little space right out into my background. I'm very messy with this red. And red's not too forgiving if you want to erase it with your colorless blender. It just tends to make a mess. Okay, so that's her dress, and I'm liking how that's shaded. If you wanted to go back, you could start again with your R29 and add a little bit more shadows. But let's go down here and do her shoes. And so for her shoes, I'm going to go right here along the edge where it touches her other shoe, and there's a bunch of little dots on the stamp already. So I'm just going to fill those in, go right next to the little cat, and then she's got a little crease right here. I'm going to grab that. And then let's do the bottom of this shoe. And then again, she's got a little crease here, so I'm just going to do that. And then I'm going to grab R29, and I'm going to lay down on top of my R89 just a little bit, and very lightly flick away, and cover up a little bit of white. Same with this side. A little bit on this side of that little crease. And then I'm going to grab 27. And again, I'm going to put it down on top of my 29. And I think I'll go a little bit on this side. And leave just a shiny area in the middle of her little shoe for the 24. And again, I'm trying to be really careful. I don't want it to get on anything else because it won't erase very well. So there is her shoes. Okay, so for the sole of her shoe, I'm just going to use E33 to fill those in. Since it's such a little bitty space, I'm not going to bother with any of that, any shading or anything. I'm just going to lightly touch my pen to the paper and fill that in. If you wanted to add some shading, let it dry just a second, and then go back in, and let's say you wanted this to be a little bit darker by the cat. Add a second coat right along where you want it to be darker, and you could let it dry again and then add even another coat, and that darkens that up a second time. So that's the sole, and then next let's go do the vest and her socks. And for that we're going to use YR26, Y26, Y23 in the colorless blender. So I'm going to go ahead and start with Y26, and I'm going to start down here on her socks since I'm already down here. And I want it to be darkest right here, and she's got a little cute little seam, so I'm going to get that. And then it's going to curl around her foot and cause a little bit of shadow, and get that little seam. And the same for this side, it's going to cause a shadow where it goes around the back of her leg. And then get these little seams on this side. And she's got this great little patch of dots here that look like it's kind of wrinkled, so I'm going to do that, and this little wrinkle. And there's a little wrinkle. I'm going to go down the back, and I'm going to get these little dots on the front of her little shoe right over the top of her, where her little cuff on her foot is there. And then I'm going to grab Y23 and I'm going to fill that in. I'm trying not to touch too much of everything else. Okay, and then I wanted to lighten them a little bit, so I just took my colorless blender and I very lightly went over this whole sock. And it just lightens it just a little bit. And next, let's go up here and do her vest. And so for her vest, again, I'm going to start with Y26. And I'm going to, she's got these great little swirls in there, so I'm just going to take my Y26 and do those little swirls. Like that. And then I'm going to go over it with my Y23 again. And just fill it in. And then again, to lighten it, I just took my colorless blender and very lightly just went over the whole vest. And I'm trying not to touch that red with my pen. But that lightened it just a little bit. I liked how that looked. Alright, so now let's go ahead and go do the sign, and for that I'm going to use E31 and E30, and it looks like I forgot to put it on the directions, so I'm going to have to go add that. So I'm going to start with my E31, and I'm going to do, well, let's do the cuff of her little shoes first. So I'm going to go down here where I want it to be dark, and she's got a little, looks like the underside of her shoe shows a little bit there. Then I'm going to do just the edge here, and just where it rolls over the top of her foot. And same for this side. And then I'm going to grab E30 and just fill that in. And again, I'm being careful not to touch that red, as if you pick it up with your pen, it's just going to go into your shoe there and make a mess. And then we're going to go up here and do our sign. So for that, I'm going to start with E31. And I'm just going to outline my sign with my E31. Turn my image here so I try not to color everything else. Let's get the top of the sign. So it looks like it's kind of rolling maybe a little bit. Then I'm going to grab E30. I'm going to go right over the edge of that E31. And I tend, E31's pretty dark even though E30's right next to it. So I tend to kind of pat it just a little bit on there. And I'm going to go all the way around, just kind of dabbing it onto that E31 and pulling it out here into my white just a little bit. Just dab, dab, dab. Okay, and so I left it white in the middle so I could go ahead and go back again. So again, I'm just going to brush right from the outside edge, and I'm going to brush down into my white and fill it all the way in. And that will give me a chance to go over that the line a second time and soften it even more. It's E31 to E30 is still a pretty big jump even though they're close together. There's a pretty big color difference. So sometimes it's a little bit harder to blend your little line a little bit. So if you see you have some more lines, just go ahead and go back over your line with your E30 and pull it out here into the white. And maybe a little bit more up here in the top. Okay, and I'm going to create more of a shadow down here at the bottom, so I'm going to go back with my E31 and I'm just going to very lightly go right next to the bottom of the sign and give it a little bit more contrast and have my shadow be darker at the bottom. And I'm just going to leave it like that. So now let's go do this cute little cat. And for that we're going to use W5, 3, 1, and 00. I'm going to start with W5, and I'm just going to start where I want my cat to be darkest, and I don't want it to be too dark up here at the top. So I'm going to start down here at the bottom, and I'm going to give him a shadow right along where he's sitting. Maybe his little tail a little bit here on the bottom and this little foot. Maybe right here. And I think I'll give him a little bit right next to this little tummy area. And then his head kind of tilts in right here. So I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit right there in that little crack and maybe underneath his little chin right here. Like that. And then I'm going to grab W3. And I'm going to brush on top of my W5 and add just a little bit more color down here, maybe along his little tummy. Add some to his tail. Let's get this side of his tail. I'm just adding a little bit more shadows without overwhelming him too much. I think I'll go up here, maybe get the underside of his ear, maybe get this ear a little bit. He's got a little nose crease, I think I'll color that in. Maybe go right next to his little cheek right here. And then I'm going to grab W1 and we'll fill in some of this right here. His little ear a little bit. Maybe up here over the top of his little nose. Down on this ear. Down here on his tail. Leave a little bit there for some more of my W00. And then I'm going to start the inside of his tummy here. So I'm going to go ahead and go right along his chin and do just the inside of his little tummy area with the W1. Like that. Maybe add a little bit more up here. Okay, and then I'm going to grab W1 and I'm going to fill in all this outside area. Sorry, this is W00. Fill in up here. But I wanted to be able to see his eyes and stuff, so I didn't get too much of the dark up there into that. And then we're just going to fill in this little tummy and his face. Blend my line a little bit better. I go right back over that a second time. And if you wanted it to be darker, you would just go over him a second coat. But I think that looks pretty good. And then for the inside of his ears, I'm going to use R20 and R30. So I'm going to grab R20. I'm going to color inside of his mouth with that. And then I'm going to give his little bit of an ear here where I want it to be shadowed. Like that. And I think I'll maybe do his little cheeks just a little bit. With this. Like that. Cut a couple little dots. And then I'm going to grab R30. I'm going to fill the rest of his ear in. And then I'm just going to go over these little dots a little bit more. Make his cheeks maybe a little bit wider. Like that. And then I'm going to go completely over his face, his little cheek area again with my W00 pen. I mean, W00 pen. Can't get that right today. Let's go right over him. Like that. Isn't he adorable? Let's zoom out. So that's our girl. Isn't she totally cute? Let's put her together. Alright, so I've got my pile of stuff for my kit, and I'm going to go ahead and put my girl together. So I'm going to grab the mat for her. I'm going to attach her to that. Stick her down. That. And then I'm going to attach this red dotty piece to this tan, or the craft piece. Like that. Then I'm going to do this cute little circled piece. And that goes kind of in the middle here. And then I'm going to put this piece with the words on. And I'll put that right here. Oops. Like that. Okay, and then we're going to attach our ribbon. I've already cut my ribbon to fit this piece, so I'm just going to attach that. And I cheat, I use some Scotch tape, and I'm just going to tape it down like this, right here to hold it. And I'm going to grab another piece, and I'm going to flip it over, and I'm going to tape that to the back. That way I don't have to have the ribbon go all the way around to the back. Seems like a waste of ribbon to have it clear around the back of the card, so I always just tape mine down here on the back. Okay, like so. And then I'm going to go ahead and attach all of this to my card base. Okay, I'll put that right on here. Like that. Okay, and then my girl is going to go right here. And it looks like I had some pop dots on there. Okay, so we're going to put some pop dots on the back of her. There's no more little ones, so we'll just put some big ones on here, like that. I'm going to put her over here, like so. And then I'm going to attach my bow. And I've already tied my bow with my Bow Easy, and there's a whole nother video on that if you want to learn how to use that. And I cheat. I take a pop dot or a glue dot, and I kind of scrunch my ribbon up so it looks like it's been tied right here, and mush it down with the pop dot or the glue dot so it's kind of wrinkled. Then I take my bow and put a glue dot on the back of that, and I just attach that right on top. So I've attached the bow after, or I made the bow and then attached it to the thing. And then I just trim this however big I want it to be. like that. And I have separate scissors for my ribbon that I put a piece of ribbon on there so I don't cut paper with them, so they're sharp. That's always very helpful. Okay, and then we have all these great snowflakes. Okay, so let's set this over here just a second. Okay, so we have snowflakes. So it looks like we went brown, white, brown, brown, white. Okay, so I'm just going to take a little bit of my liquid glue and I'm going to stick it onto this and turn it and stick it right on top of this brown one like that. We'll let that dry for a second and I'll attach this white one to this little brown one. I'm just going to put a little bit of glue here in the middle around the little star and I'm going to attach that. And let's offset it a little bit like that. Okay, and while that one was drying a little bit, let's go ahead and attach this brown one. Again, I'm going to put it right around the middle. And then let's put that right here. Like that. Okay, perfect. Then we're going to attach those to this. So I want this big snowflake over here, so I'm going to go ahead and squirt some glue on the back. And you can decide where you want that. I want to keep it on the card so that it'll still fit in the envelope. So I'm going to put it right here. Hold it down for a second, let it dry. Then I'm going to put this one with the two snowflakes together over, whoops, got some dirt on there. How about right here? That looks like a good place. And then this one little snowflake, let's put that one about right here where this red is so I can cover that up. I got some red on my image while I was squishing it on the paper, I guess. So attach that. And then in your kit this month you got some pearls, so you're going to pick whatever size pearls you want. And I'm going to put those, and I usually just use my scissors to grab a whatever off of there. And I'm going to put that in the middle, put some in the middle of each of my snowflakes. Let's get a medium one this time. Whoops. Oh, it's escaping. Like this. I'm going to put that in the middle of this little star, like that. And how about this littler one, or the next littler one, in the middle of this one. And then I decided this time I was going to add a little bit down here in the corner. So I grabbed, you don't have to, this is just what I decided this time. I was going to put some more on there, and of course the one I pick up does not want to let go of the glue dot. And I just attached a few of these down here in the corner. Whoops, that one didn't pick up a glue dot either. They're just being finicky today. Put that one right there since the glue dot fell off right there. And right there. And you can put those wherever you want them to go, or not put any at all. That's totally up to you. I just thought it was kind of bare there, so I wanted to add a little something extra there. Okay, then I'm going to take some stickles, and I want to add some stickles to the lace on her dress. Whoops, that's not stickles. So I'll get the stickles, and I just squirted a little bit out, and then just tapped it along her lace of her dress there. Add a little bit of glitter. Oops. And then down here on the bottom ruffle of her dress I added some. And right here on her sleeve. Like that. And then this time I used some liquid pearls to add some dots around the outside of my girl. So I'm just going to take my liquid pearls and squirt out a dot like that. Wherever you want to place those, I'm going to put some over here. Maybe that'll distract from whatever I got on the image there. Got some kind of little lines or something there from when I stamped it, I guess. I'm just making a mess with today with my card. And put a couple little dots down here. And they look like little pointy pine cones. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick the card up and I'm going to whack it on my hand. I usually do this on my cutting board. I'll just give it a few hard whaps on the edge of the table or the counter or whatever, and that will flatten the little pearls out so they're not all pointy. But that is our December card this month. So if you want to see if we have still one available, head over to the store and pick that up. And thanks for joining me. Have a great day.